Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with Lost Valley, the new DLC for Solasta Crown of the Magister. As part of the DLC, all the current classes received a new subclass. I thought it'd be interesting to review them and compare them to the subclasses already available. Let's get right into it. So first up is the Barbarian, and the new subclass that you get is Path of the Claw. At level 3, you're going to choose which dragon you want to be associated with, which is going to choose your elemental damage, so fire, ice, whatever you prefer. Also, while raging, you're going to get a +1 bonus to AC and resistance to that specific damage type. The +1 bonus to AC is really nice since as a barbarian, you're probably going to be attacking recklessly all the time. So this is going to help make up for the AC that you lose doing that. Then at level 6, you're going to gain a cone elemental attack. It's going to do damage equal to half your level rounded up D8. And this thing can absolutely obliterate enemies, especially since as a barbarian, more than likely you're an upfront fighter. I've had this cone do 30 plus damage to 2 or 3 enemies all at one time. And then in level 10, while raging, your melee weapon attacks deal an additional 1d8 elemental damage. Really nice stuff. All of this together, in my personal opinion, Path of the Claw is now the best barbarian subclass. I really like Path of the Berserker before because it gives you an additional weapon attack as a bonus action. Also, you can't be charmed or frightened. But honestly, I've never had an issue with being charmed or frightened. I've played through both Crown of the Magister and Lost Valley. Never had either one of these things happen to me. Also, it allows you to be able to frighten creatures, but I never found a use for that because I'm not building up charisma as a barbarian. And there's a possibility of you getting exhausted at the end of a rage, which is a very irritating debuff. So personally, I think Path of the Claw is the best subclass available to the barbarian now. Next up, we have Cleric, and they gain Mischief as their subclass. So Mischief gives you a specific list of spells you're always going to have prepared. Having Blur is very nice if you're using your Cleric as an upfront fighter. Greater invisibility can be useful depending on who's on your team. Dominate Person is going to add more people who are willing to help you. So there's really nice spell options in the spell list. They're going to get proficiency with stealth and deception. And then whenever you fail a saving throw where you did not have disadvantage, you can use your reaction to roll again. But then if you succeed, you will have disadvantage on your next saving throw. That can be very nice in the right situation. They get Channel Divinity Strike of Chaos, which allows you to add psychic damage to a melee or ranged weapon attack. And this is going to steadily increase in damage as you level up until it gets to, I believe, 4d6 when you hit level 11. So very powerful stuff. And it can add a particular condition, which you can choose, whether it be advantage on attack rolls, blinded, restrained, whatever you prefer. Then, in addition, at level 6, you are extremely hard to corner in combat. When a melee attack hits you, you can use your reaction to gain the benefits of dodging and disengaging until the end of your next turn. So it's going to make you significantly more tanky when you do this. Also at level 8, once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can deal an extra 1d8 psychic damage to the target. And then when you reach level 14, the damage will increase to 2d8. So it's going to allow you to be able to do even more damage towards enemies. At level 10, like all clerics, you can request the help of your deity. So all of this together, you can see you get some really nice spells, and it allows you to do some additional damage. Obviously, if your main concern with being a cleric is for you to be able to heal, life might be a superior choice for you, especially because it's going to give you Guardian of Faith, which in my opinion is probably one of, if not the best spells in the game for dealing with enemies. And it's going to give you a bunch of spells that are going to help you either deal radiant damage or heal people more. And then also, if you're concerned with being able to hold more weapons while spell casting, battle might be superior for you, since it's going to allow you to cast spells with a somatic component without a free hand, provided a weapon or shield is being wielded. And then you still get some very nice spells like Fireball and Haste and Hold Monster. So it gives you some flexibility there as well. So I don't know which one you would necessarily consider the best. That depends on your team, but Mischief is definitely a very, very solid choice in the list. Next up is Druid, and they get Circle of Balance as their new subclass. So you're going to get some very, very nice spells for healing, like Mass Healing, Revivify, things of that nature, Mass Cure Wounds. And then whenever you use a level 1 or higher spell to restore hit points to a creature, they also regain an additional number of hit points equal to your level at the start of your next turn. So this can be very, very nice to give some additional healing that's going to help top off the people who need it the most. And then in level 6, your spells are more effective against creatures you already faced. You gain a bonus equal to half your knowledge level, rounded up, to your spell DC and spell attack modifier against them. Now, this is very useful if you're a completionist, because there's a huge amount of enemy variety in Lost Valley. So it's not like other games where you kind of face the same type of creatures all the time. So you really have to be going through the content to face the same kind of creatures over and over again. If you're focusing on being a completionist and seeing a lot of the game, then this is going to be very useful to you. But if you're just trying to burn through and finish it as quickly as possible, you're not going to be able to build up your knowledge enough for this to actually kick in for you. So it depends on your actual play style. And then finally, at level 10, whenever you damage an opponent with a spell, they are unable to heal any HP until the start of your next turn. This is actually very useful in Lost Valley because there are a lot of enemies that love to heal themselves during their turn. And with this particular class, you do get a couple of ways to be able to hit multiple enemies at the same time, which means you will be able to stop multiple enemies from being able to heal their damage. So that's very, very nice. Honestly, I'm not a fan of this subclass, but it's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's definitely going to make you a great healer. But to me, it just doesn't feel like a druid. This basically feels like a druid trying to be a cleric instead of an actual druid healing subclass, if that makes any sense. So me personally, if I'm going to play a druid, I'm still probably going to pick Circle of the Kindred Spirit, which is going to allow you to basically call in another animal that is going to help you in combat. And this spirit animal gets more powerful as you level up, in addition to you also being able to turn into an animal and damage enemies. That feels much more like a druid build and a druid playthrough to me. So that's kind of what I stick with, but your mileage may vary. Next up is Fighter, and they get the Commander. You're going to gain proficiency in Intimidation and Insight. You can use a bonus action to give all allies within 3 cells of you, including yourself, advantage on their next attack until the start of your next turn. You can use this power a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Then you need to take a short rest. So on the one hand, it's really nice because a lot of these classes don't have a natural way to gain advantage on enemies. So to have somebody in your party who could just give it to them is really useful. But the problem is it only works within 3 cells. And I would say there's a lot of enemies in Lost Valley that love to use Fireball. So you don't want to crowd up all your team together, especially if you got a bunch of ranged people on your team who really can't take the hits like that. So this is really only useful for your frontline fighters, and whether or not that's useful to you depends on how many frontline fighters you actually have and whether or not they need someone who can give them advantage on melee attacks. At level 7, you get Coordinated Defense. When you use the attack action, you can forego one of your attacks to grant an ally within 3 cells dodge until the start of your next turn. I would say you would use this very rarely. I definitely feel like Solasta is the kind of game where a great offense is the best defense. You need to get these people off the field so they can stop hitting you. And then finally, Invigorating Shot is going to take this Rousing Shout and make it from 3 cells to 6 cells. So obviously this makes it a lot more useful, but you have to wait until level 10 to get it. So I still say that overall, I just don't feel like this subclass is really worth it. I still prefer Spellblade. It's going to allow your weapon to count as a magic weapon. You can use any melee weapon you are proficient with as a spell casting focus for your wizard spells, and you do get wizard spells and cantrips of the Conjuration, Evocation, Transmutation, and Enchantment schools. So very nice. And then finally, at level 10, you can target a creature and move it one cell in any direction if it fails a strength save. So this together, I prefer this class for fighter, and I think it's superior to commander. Next up is Paladin, and they have the Oath of Judgment. They get some nice spells, Guiding Bolt, Hold Person, Haste, so some things that can really help them. And then as a bonus action, they can channel Divinity to pour Determination into their weapon. The next time they hit a creature with a melee attack, they must make a Charisma saving throw, or the creature will be restrained for up to 1 minute. Restrained is a very powerful debuff, so this is very nice. But the target is able to make a saving throw at the end of each turn to try to end the effect, but it's a charisma saving throw. So there are a lot of enemies that do not have a particularly high charisma. And then as a bonus action, you could use your channel divinity to remove a negative condition from yourself. There are a lot of dryads in the game who love to paralyze you. So being able to just take off that condition whenever you like is really helpful. And then at level 7, they get Aura of Righteousness. You constantly emanate a 2-cell wide aura while not incapacitated. Allies will add damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So again, that's nice, but it's only 2 cells, so more than likely it's not going to reach your ranged allies. But if you have multiple frontline fighters, this could potentially be useful to you. This is okay. It's not bad. Me personally, I still prefer Oath of the Motherland. This is going to allow you to channel Divinity to target one creature and give it 2d6 plus Paladin level fire damage and set the target on fire. You can also channel Divinity to blind opponents within 12 cells who fail a dexterity save. And even if the creatures have dark vision or better sight in darkness, they're going to have disadvantage, and the blindness lasts 1d4 turns. And then at level 7, friendly creatures in your aura gain fire resistance and +1 to AC. I think this is really nice, and it's the Paladin subclass that I personally prefer. Next, we go to Ranger, and they have Swift Blade. So at level 3, your speed is going to increase by 2 cells. And when you use the dash action, opportunity attacks against you are made with disadvantage. They're also going to get blade dash. So if you're wielding a melee weapon in each hand, you gain a +2 bonus to AC. Obviously, +2 to AC is nothing to sneeze at. Makes you a lot more sturdy in upfront combat. Really nice. Then at level 7, they get Battle Focus. As a free action, you can enter a heightened state of Battle Focus. All your melee weapon attacks deal an additional 2d8 weapon damage of the weapon's damage type until the start of your next turn. You need to take a long rest to recover all uses of this power. So keep in mind, as a ranger, you could get to the point where you are attacking, well, by level 11, I think you can attack like 4 times between the 2 regular attacks you get, the feat that you can take, and then this as well. So you kick this off at the start, and then you're going to get some spells because rangers can do some spell casting as well. So there's a spell that marks enemies that allows you to do additional damage to them as well. And you get additional damage from favored enemies or enemies that you have a high amount of knowledge with. So if you put all of that together and then you do 4 attacks, this is an absolute boss killer. You can flat out eliminate really difficult enemies with this setup. I think Swift Blade is definitely the best subclass for the Ranger. I had an absolutely fantastic time using it in the game. Next up is Rogue, and their subclass is Hoodlum. So as a Hoodlum, you're going to gain proficiency in Intimidation or Expertise if you already have proficiency. You're going to gain proficiency with martial weapons, medium armor, and shields. And then you're also going to be able to use Sneak Attack with non-finesse melee weapons. So basically what this means is instead of having to focus on dexterity, you can have a rogue who focuses on strength and still is able to hit with sneak attack, which is very, very cool. It's a nice switch up. And then at level 9, you get menacing. When you hit an enemy with a sneak attack, they have disadvantage on attacks made against you until the start of your next turn. So obviously this is going to make you more tanky. Altogether, I feel like this is really a nice switch up. And honestly, I'm not high on any of the other subclasses for the rogue. So I would say Hoodlum is the best one, but not because it's so great in and of itself, just because I feel like the other ones really don't give you all that much. Next up is Sorcerer, and you get Haunted Soul. So Haunted Soul basically has you focusing on powers that do necromantic damage. Phantasmal Killer is absolutely a beastly power. Basically, you put it on an enemy. If they fail their check, they're frightened, and then they're going to take the necrotic damage every time they start their turn if they continue to fail their check. Really, really nice stuff. This actually can be a boss killer against bosses whose scores are too low to be able to pass that particular check. And then they also get Spirit Visage. You can use a bonus action to attempt to scare an enemy that you can see within 6 cells of you. The target must make a Wisdom saving throw, or they will have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls until the start of your next turn. This is nice to be able to pull out, and since it's 6 cells, even as a ranged character, you're probably going to be within range to be able to do this to the enemy that you want to hit. So really cool stuff. But level 6 is when it gets interesting. You get Vengeful Spirits. You can use a bonus action to call forth the spirits inside you for up to 1 minute. You can target a 3x3 cell area that you can see within 18 cells. Any opponent that enters the area for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there must make a charisma saving throw or take 2d6 plus your charisma modifier in necrotic damage, half damage on a successful save. Each turn, you can use your bonus action to move that area by 6 cells. Once you use Vengeful Spirits, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend 4 sorcery points to use it again. So the way this works, first turn, you throw out Vengeful Spirits. It does not affect your party members. So you can throw it down right underneath your tank who's surrounded by enemies. It's going to hit all of them, either for full damage or half damage. Next turn, as a bonus action, you can move it around wherever you feel like it would be best, and then still do your full usual round of powers, allowing you to do solid damage to a group of enemies and then massive damage to whatever enemies you're targeting with your powers. Really, really cool stuff. I think this is absolutely highly effective against enemies. And personally, I'd say it's probably the best subclass for the Sorcerer now. I really used to like Draconic Bloodline, and specifically choosing Fire, because then at level 6 you got Elemental Affinity, allowing you to add your Charisma modifier to your spell damage for a particular elemental type. And of course, your Charisma modifier should be sky high as a Sorcerer, but I don't think it matches up to the additional damage that you're able to do with Vengeful Spirits. And even though Vengeful Spirits is not something you can use like every fight, you kind of got to manage it. Still, when you see a ton of enemies, or you know you're going up against a really, really hard fight, to be able to just throw that out and help whittle enemies down, I feel like it gives you a boon that Draconic Bloodline can't really match. Great stuff. And then finally for Wizard, we have Court Mage. So as a Court Mage, you gain proficiency with shields and gain the Protection Fighting Style, which the fighting styles are usually under Fighter. And it allows you to use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attack roll made against an ally next to you, provided you are wearing a shield. Also, you can use an action to create a powerful shield around yourself and an ally you can see within 6 cells of you. This spell shield grants both of you temporary hit points equal to 5 times your level for up to 1 hour. You can use this power twice and then need to take a long rest to recover it. Counterspell Mastery at level 6 allows you to gain advantage on your spell casting checks when casting Counterspell against level 4 or higher spells. Additionally, enemies have disadvantage on their spell casting checks when casting Counterspell against any of your spells. This is actually a monster ability for Lost Valley. There are a ton of enemy spellcasters who love to use Counterspell and stop whatever you're doing. So to be able to use it against them and be able to make it much, much harder for them to stop you, that's actually really, really useful for this DLC. And then at level 10, you're going to get improved Spell Shield. Creatures under the effect of Spell Shield are now also able to gain advantage on all saving throws against spells and magic effects. So this is cool. It's definitely very, very different. So I like that they added it. But me personally, I still feel like Shock Arcanist is the best subclass for the wizard. It's going to allow you to cast certain spells as if they were 1 slot higher. Being able to cast Fireball as a 1 slot higher spell is massive. Fireball is such a huge spell. And even before then, he's going to get a bunch of spells that are going to be very, very useful for you to automatically cast in a more powerful way. Then you're also going to get Arcane Fury, which is going to add your proficiency bonus and intelligence bonus to your evocation spell damage for 1 minute. Your intelligence bonus should be sky high, so obviously this is going to be a big deal. And then at level 10, you can overcharge it even more with Arcane Shock. When you cast an attack spell, your damage dice are always above average. You, of course, have to make a Constitution saving throw check, or you'll take 2d6 psychic damage, but whatever, it won't matter because all of your enemies will be flailing around on fire and it'll be just fine. So me personally, I'd say this is the best subclass, but Core Mage is interesting. And like I said, for Lost Valley specifically, it has some very, very nice boons. And that is the full list of new subclasses that are available in the game. I hope I was able to give you all this information in a way that was clear, but if you have any questions, by all means, just leave me a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer anything that I can. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like down below, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.